Welcome, my friends. So glad you're back with me. In today's video, I'm going to share with you some of the Christmas gifts I have started making. I usually do this in July, but I'm going to go ahead and get started now. I am making casserole warmers, which are these right here, and casserole totes for Christmas presents. And they're easy, they're very easy, perfect for beginner sewers. So let me start with our casserole warmers. And this is perfect because it has this insul fleece. You get this at Walmart, but it's insulated to keep your food warm. On here you could do oven mitts with it, bottle bags, lunch boxes, but you get this at Walmart or Amazon. And so that's going to be our lining. That's just what is going to keep the casserole dish warm. So like Christmas morning, we have a brunch here and I set up a big buffet of food, and I don't want my casseroles to get cold. So I'm just going to set them in these pretty rectangular, or you can make a square, whatever dish you have. I'll show you how easy it is to make one to fit that dish. All right, so what you're going to need for a 10 by 13 pan, you need to cut a decorative piece of fabric 20 by 15, and then the inside, or the part that goes under your casserole dish, doesn't have to be decorative. You could make it all the same, but this also has to be 20 by 15, all right? So I've got, this is the piece that goes on the top. This is the piece, and it's beautiful. Look at that beautiful poinsettia. This is the piece that goes on the bottom because you want to see this pretty around the edge of your casserole dish. So I've cut two pieces. All right, I've also cut some heavy Pellon. And this is iron-on interfacing, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to iron this onto my pretty print just to make it stiffer, because you want your sides to stand up. So take this to the ironing board and iron this on. All right, you also need to cut a 20 by 15 piece of the insul fleece. And then this is what keeps the food warm. So after you've ironed your Pellon on, you're going to lay this flat. Okay, now we're going to place this right on top. We need to quilt this, machine quilt this. The shiny side is up because this is where our casserole dish will sit, and we want to keep this part closest to the dish to keep it warm. So you have your bottom piece, you've ironed on your Pellon, and then we're placing this on. And you're going to pin all the way around, and then starting in the center, I just quilted. I did a squiggly line on my machine, and I'll show you in the video. But you just quilt this to it. It really makes it pretty, gives it a quilted look. All right? So after we've quilted it, then we're going to take the top piece. I'm going to turn this back over, right sides together. I'm going to lay this right on top, pin it all the way around, but you're going to leave about a 3-inch gap so you can turn this and then sew it all the way around. Okay, then you're going to turn it, and then I'll show you in my craft room how I made this. But it's really easy. It's just a rectangle. Then I'll show you how to bring up the sides and to do this decorative little corner piece. But these go really fast. And then let me share with you a tip. If you have a casserole dish and you're not sure what size, it's not a 10 by 13. Let's say it's an 8 by 8 like this one. What you're going to do is lay your casserole dish on your fabric. Okay, this is bigger, but you are going to want to allow 3.5 inches from each side. And that will get your piece right up to the lip of your casserole dish. You don't want it higher because you don't want food getting on it. All right, so 3.5, 3.5, 3.5. And then you measure your dish. So this is 8 by 8. So 8 by 8 plus 3.5 plus 3.5. And then you cut your fabric to that size. All right. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments below. All right, I've got everything cut. All my layers cut. So let's head upstairs and we'll go step by step on how to put this easy casserole warmer together. All right, first step is we're going to iron on that fusible webbing to the back of our floral print. And using a hot iron, I just press that in place. It does take a few seconds to get it to melt and adhere. And this is going to make our base of our casserole warmer nice and stiff. And that's what you want. So that's the first step. All right, step 2, now that we have that ironed on, is to take our Insul fleece fabric, lay it right side up, the silver side up, because this is what the casserole dish is going to sit on. And we want that heat to hold there. So set this up. We're going to pin this in place, and then we're going to machine quilt it. I'm using those little clips over there in that container to pin it all the way around. And then I'll show you the next step, which is quilting it. All right, step 3, we're going to the machine. I'm setting my stitch on a nice kind of curvy wave stitch to quilt this with. I found the center point of my fabric, and I'm going to start with a seam line down the very center of this. And we're just going to do that little wavy stitch all the way down to the bottom. Very easy. It's very pretty. You could use straight stitches. You could do a decorative floral stitch, whatever you want to do. This one's a little fast, and I like the look of it. So I'm just going right down the center of the fabric. Then I'm going to move over and do one side at a time. That keeps your fabric from buckling or getting puckered if you just work down the middle and then across each side. So I'm going over and I'm going to use my little measuring tool because I want all my seam lines equal. About 2 inches I think I did this. So I'm just going to measure and then place my needle 2 inches over, and that will be my next seam line. And I continue this until the right side is done, and then I will shift the fabric around, and working from the middle out, I will do the left side. And then it is completely quilted, and you are done with that step. All right, the piece has been quilted. You can see those curvy lines all the way down. We're going to turn it over and trim it. Trim it to make it nice and even. So just take a pair of scissors, run down both sides and trim. All right, we're going to take our other piece of fabric, and this is what you're not going to see right under your casserole dish. But with right sides together, I am lining this up to sew all the way around the poinsettia piece of fabric. So I'm going to trim it. It was just a little bit longer. I'm going to trim it, and then we're going to pin it all the way around, leaving about a 3-inch gap on the side for turning. So I'm taking my clips and just going to go all the way around. There it is, right sides together, and then pin or clip in place. All right, everything's pinned in place, and I've left that 3-inch gap. On the machine, I've sewn all the way around, and I've left that gap right there. And we're going to trim this up a little bit and clip those corners so it has a nice look when we turn it. So just going to clip those corners and then turn it inside out. Okay, now we're ready to turn the fabric inside out, and I like to reach to the furthest point and pull that through first. It just makes it come out easier. So I'm just going to pull that right through that opening. And then I'm going to use a stick to push out all of those points once we pull it all out. All right, you can see that was pretty easy to put together. Now I'm just going to press out all of those seams and those corners and make it nice and flat. Now I'm going to top stitch around that edge. And so using the sewing machine, I went with a straight seam. I went all the way around the edge and top stitched this piece. All right, we're going to turn our piece over, and this is where we're going to make our decorative corners. So I'm pulling my two pieces of fabric together to make a point. Again, you can watch this step. And I'm going to measure 2 inches from that point inward. 2 inches, and then I'm going to put a clip there, and that's going to be where my seam line is going. So I'm basically making a little triangle on each corner. So I'm going to go over to the next corner and do the same thing. Pull the 2 pieces together, measure 2 inches, and put a clip in. And then we're going to do that on all corners. Alright, now it's time to sew. So where we have that clip, we're going to do a straight seam line down. Take it over to the machine, and you can see I'm checking my measurement again, 2 inches, putting my needle in position, and I'm just going to sew straight down. Alright, I'm going to do that on all 4 corners. And that's what it looks like, straight seam down. Okay? So we're going to go around and do all 4 corners. All right, I have all 4 corners sewn, and what we're going to do is we're going to pop that in just like that. You saw where I just pushed it in, and I'm going to do a little stitch right across that seam line. And that's what kind of gives you that little puckered point. I'm going to put a clip there, and I'm going to go back and clip all of my corners. I just think it looks pretty. You could leave it like that, but I like how when you open that it kind of looks like a flower petal. So I'll show you again. I'm clipping my threads, and I just push the back of it open just like that, and then just put a clip, and we're going to sew straight across, just holding that in place there. So we're going to go over to the machine, and I'll show you how easy it is just to stitch that in place. And it was only about an inch stitch line, just enough to hold it in place. All right, I've got my needle in position. I'm going across, and then I'm going to back stitch, and that will hold my thread in place. That's it. So we're going to go around and do this on all of the other corners. And you just got this pretty little petal, it looks like, sticking out on each side. Trim all your threads, and we'll move around the casserole tote. All right, we finished our corners. Now I'm just kind of tucking the fabric in place. Now I want these to be nice and stiff and stand up. And so in order to do that, you're going to need to top stitch across the bottom. So what you do is the 2 longer sides, we're going to fold it down, tucking that inside fabric in. We're going to measure 3 inches. Then I'm going to put a clip there. And I'm doing the 2 longest sides first. So put our clips in. Then we're going to go to the bottom of that side and top stitch straight across from corner to corner. This just helps it to stand. It gives it shape, helps it to stand in place. So we'll take it and do the other side the same way. Lay it flat, and then measure, And you may want to set your dish in to make sure this has gone high enough. You don't want it too high because you don't want your food to hit this. And then put your clips in place. Then we'll go over to the machine, and between the two ends we'll do a nice top stitch. Alright, I'm at the machine. I'm starting at one corner. Got my needle in position. I am going to stitch a few stitches and then back stitch to hold it in place. There we go, right close to that edge. And then take a few stitches and then back stitch. And then sew straight to the other side, staying right along that edge line down at the bottom. Then I'm going to do the other side, and then we'll go pin our two ends. And this just helps stabilize it and makes it stand up. Okay, all the way to the next corner. Then I'm going to stitch and back stitch in place. There you go, and that's it. See how much more professional and how that stands up? It just looks nicer to do that top stitch step. All right, we'll go over and do the other side the exact same way. We've done all four sides now, and look how pretty that turned out. And that's it, you're done. So let me put a casserole dish in here and show you what it looks like. So that is so pretty, but it's also dual purpose. It's going to keep your casseroles warm. It's very decorative, but it also helps keep those dishes nice and warm. All right, just some more information on this Insul fleece. If you're going to use this in a project that will come in contact with over a 400-degree Fahrenheit, they recommend you add another layer of batting between that and the Insul fleece just to keep it from melting. I do not typically cook anything that's over 400 degrees. Most of mine are 350 to 400 recipes, but just keep that in mind. Do not put this in the microwave, and I would not put this in the oven at all. But that's just some information. Always read your packaging information. You can wash this, but I would recommend you spot clean. If you get something on the sides, you just spot clean it with a rag. You don't want to lose your shape. And usually it'll last a long time just spot cleaning. All right, I hope you enjoyed that part of the video on how to make the casserole warmers. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. Now I'm going to share with you what you're going to need to have to make the casserole totes. I have a full video that I'm going to link in the description box below on how to step by step make these casserole totes. I don't want to make this video too long, but I'll share with you what exactly you're going to need to start to make these. First of all, you need a pattern, and typically I make my own patterns. I don't try to order. I can look at something on Pinterest and try to figure it out, and then I make my pattern. So I made this pattern a long time ago out of wrapping paper that has that grid on the back. So what I did was I cut a rectangular shape, 36 by 15 and a half, okay? So I've cut out one long rectangle. You want to fold it in half, right? You are going to measure from the outside edge in 5 inches and mark it. Same thing on the other side. Come over 5 inches and mark it. Then you're going to come up 4 inches and mark it. Come up 4 inches and mark it. Keeping these two sides together because you want both ends to be exactly equal. You can either square it off here or you can scallop it right here. I did this freehand, but you do whatever works best for you. So then you've got your basic pattern, okay? All right, so you're going to cut 2 of these out of fabric, and you're going to cut one of the insole fleece, because that's what we're going to line this with. You also need your flaps. These are what hold your piece in place. So you're going to need to cut a pattern 12 by 10, okay? Then you're going to cut 4 of fabric. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're going to cut 2 of the insole fleece out of this pattern. And that's all you need for the totes, okay? You're going to need dowel rods. Now you can buy these at any hardware store. They're usually long. My husband cut these for me in 11-inch sections. That will fit perfectly in this size casserole tote. I did stain mine a little bit, but you're going to need 2 dowel rods, okay? You're going to need your pretty fabric. You can line it with the same fabric, or you can use a contrast fabric. So I've got a whole stack of these in my sewing room that I'm going to be working on, but go check out that video to give you those step-by-step easy instructions, and you'll be on your way to making a bunch of casserole totes for friends and family. They make great gifts. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and have a very blessed day.